Anime MMORPGs used to be the crown kings of the MMORPG genre. During the mid to late 2000s, you couldn't really go anywhere online without being spammed by a plethora of advertisements pushing varying anime MMOs. I have played my fair share of anime MMORPGs over the years, as I started playing MMORPGs all the way back in 2004 to 2005 when I was still just a kid. Back then, they weren't really frowned upon as they are today, though to be completely fair here, these days they aren't even really frowned upon, they're just completely irrelevant. With a few single exceptions, there are no anime MMORPGs left on the market, which is a damn shame considering the fact that I all but grew up on anime MMORPGs. I would love for a company to release an anime MMORPG that really changes how people perceive them. I would literally throw my money at anyone that could truly pull off a unique anime-inspired MMORPG that draws an audience in, that actually captivates its target audience, that is actually good. Now, don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying that the minuscule selection we have left is really void of anything worth playing. I am just merely pointing out the fact that once the remaining games fall, there will be no real actual anime MMORPGs left. Now, what does this actually mean for the anime MMORPG genre? With no intention of producing new anime-inspired MMORPGs, what else is there honestly to hope for? What else can we even do outside of enjoying what we have left? Until there is ultimately nothing left to enjoy, the games we once loved and played, almost religiously even, abandoned and destroyed by the fans that once loved them. This can, however, be said about the entire MMORPG genre as a whole at this point though. I mean, almost every single MMORPG with any semblance of a population left currently is in a constant state of decline. There are only a few exceptions to this, being Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, Elder Scrolls Online, and World of Warcraft. And that is because they were all AAA titles, they all had expansions that came out in the last year, but I digress. Anime MMORPGs are far and few between, so I figure I would go ahead and talk about the few left that I still enjoy and believe you should probably attempt to play before they're all gone as well. I know that in the past we have gone ahead and made several top 10 videos featuring the best anime-inspired MMORPGs that you could play at the time, and while they still hold true, they are in fact the best ones you can play. A vast majority of them are still not actually very good. So in light of that, my reasoning behind believing that Phantasy Star Online 2 is actually worth playing is the fact that unlike other games that are in the same vein, such as Vindictus or Soul Worker Online or Critica, Phantasy Star just seems like a significantly larger, more polished MMORPG. Whereas the others feel instanced, and you can very easily tell they're instanced, Phantasy Star Online 2 just does not. Adding on to this is the fact that occasionally you find people that join your instance, something that has surprised me on more than one occasion. We've gone as far as meeting new people through having them join our instance and assist in whatever we're doing due to us being underleveled for what we were actually supposed to be doing. Gameplay in Phantasy Star Online 2 is fast, it is fun, and it is full of features that most MMOs don't actually offer, such as the ability to switch between a unique selection of varying weapons, dependent on the class you chose when actually creating your character, making for some very fun combat, some fun combinations, as you're capable of swapping between 3 different active weapon styles at a time. Then we have the overall look and feel of the game, which is incredible. I mean, it feels so much like an old anime-inspired JRPG that it actually makes me reminisce a little about the JRPGs that are no longer really released anymore. Unfortunately, however, the game is completely in Japanese, as Sega refuses to localize the game into English, although fan translations for the game have been made, and Sega doesn't really seem to care if we use them. Therefore, I strongly urge you to attempt to use the English patch if you do not already and are thinking of trying the game out. Blade and Soul is the main MMORPG I play currently, partially due to it being my girlfriend's game forcing me into it. Yeah, let's not tell her I said that. I love you, dear. And partially because it's actually a good game, especially for a free-to-play MMORPG. There are some things that bother me regarding Blade and Soul, such as the instanced world, but generally you explore the game like you would any other open world MMORPG, going from quest hub to quest hub. Although NCSoft recently merged all of the servers into 2 single servers, which is never a good sign. The 2 remaining servers are much more populated in contrast to what they were prior to the merges. Couple that with the recent release of the Gunslinger class, and there is no time more ideal than right now to jump into Blade and Soul. The graphics in Blade and Soul are the best you'll find in a free-to-play MMORPG, with the exception of possibly Guild Wars 2, but then again, that was originally pay-to-play and expansions are all buy-to-play, so... Nevertheless, adding on to that is the fact that it's also one of the most perverse-looking MMORPGs on the market. I mean, if you play the game or ever really seen any of the outfits from the game, you'll understand why I go ahead and say this. Then combat. Combat in Blade and Soul is superb. It is literally amazing. Unfortunately, however, I am terrible at the game, sucking at both the Summoner and the Kung Fu Master, which I both main. But the combat itself is some of the most fun combat I've ever experienced in an MMORPG. Then we have quite a bit of our Byte community partaking in the game, as it is honestly one of the few we can all actually play together, being highly populated and free. Terra is an older one, yet one that should definitely not be avoided, neglected, or forgotten. Terra, in all honesty, set the standard when it came down to pay-to-play MMORPGs shifting to a free-to-play model. It was one of the largest games at the time to go through with the transition. It's always a hefty gamble doing something different, and the team behind Terra took a chance. A chance that ultimately paid off, turning Terra from what seemed like an all but certain failure into a free-to-play MMORPG titan, absolutely destroying every other free-to-play MMORPG out at the time. Putting out content update after content update, most notably in the form of additional classes, but even still, I unfortunately never had the opportunity to try Terra out when it was pay-to-play, but I did get the opportunity to play it after it went free-to-play. It is, without a doubt, still one of my favorite MMORPGs, especially in the anime genre, and although in 2017 going into 2018 it is beginning to show a little wear and tear, the game is still leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. Not only is the action combat in Terra some of the most entertaining behind Blade and Soul, Soul Worker, and Black Desert Online only in terms of actual quality combat, but it is also one of the best looking MMORPGs still around currently. There are only a few MMORPGs around that look better overall than Terra, and only one of them is actually free to play. This one, Soul Worker, is actually releasing in the West very soon, which is great because outside of Phantasy Star Online 2, it is literally the only instanced MMORPG that I actually enjoy playing. That is because the majority of instanced MMORPGs are boring and repetitious, which is fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're into repetitious games, then go right ahead. I know plenty of people that enjoy them, and more power to them. However, I personally do not, and as such, grinding the same dungeon 5 times consecutively really isn't my idea of a fun time. I am a fan, however, of open world games, so Soul Worker, Phantasy Star, you know, they have to be quite the catch to hold my attention. With Soul Worker Online, the reason it's capable of retaining my attention for so long is the incredible gameplay and absolutely amazing anime graphic style. It is the most anime-looking MMO I have ever seen, and I cannot stress enough that if you want a released MMORPG that actually looks like an anime, Soul Worker is your bet. At least until maybe Period Chronicles releases sometime in the next decade. I don't know. So there are other anime MMORPGs out there, naturally, like Eden Eternal or Grand Fantasia or Aura Kingdom, Ragnarok Online, Lunar Reborn. I mean, I can probably go on and on and on, especially if you include browser MMORPGs. Ugh. But amongst all of them, there are only a handful of good ones, and this is what I believe remains of the highest quality ones. There are some okay anime MMORPGs out there like Closers, Critica, Aura Kingdom, and Mabinogi, but none of them that are really worthy of being called great in 2017, and especially going into 2018. So all of that being said, outside of watching the rapid decline of anime MMORPGs, there really isn't much we can do. So all of this being said, outside of watching the rapid decline of anime MMORPGs, there really isn't much we can do to save the few games we have left to enjoy. Therefore, if you are on the fence about playing an anime MMORPG, please just go ahead and try one of these. What's the worst thing that could happen? You dislike it? Pfft.
Shooting stars came crashing down, and we're building